What a rotten turnout. Pathetic. Did you not know that Simon Drew will be opening the show? More than you. They did. Well, thank you all for coming to celebrate what is now, would you believe, this is the 41st Illustrators annual show in Ryder Street. Now, we've tried very hard to bring all the usual delicious things on the menu. All the greatest names in British illustration is here for you. Arthur Rackham, have you heard of him? No? And we've got some pictures of his very best book, which is Peter Pan in 1906. 4 of the rare, wonderful Edmund Dulac. My favourite illustrator, William Heath Robinson. We've got Ardizzone, he's the quintessential 20th century illustrator, downstairs, and alongside him, the man I believe is the greatest cartoon illustrator post-war, which is Ronald Searle. There's some classics down there. It is a great looking show, and I'm glad that you're seeing these treasures, but I think increasingly the show is a showcasing for all the best of the living and the recently deceased artists that we have. And I'm very glad to say that some of them have actually turned out. No, not the deceased one. We have a séance later. Now, Michael Foreman was here just briefly. I regard him now actively as the best illustrator of children's books. I know you'll say Quinton Blake, but really Quinton's not doing anything anymore. Michael is still in his 88th year producing wonderful stuff. And there's some recent material, but also some great pictures from 1981 collaboration with Terry Jones, which I think is some of his very best. We've got Paul Cox is here tonight. Where are you, Paul? The great Paul Cox is here. A fantastic selection of Paul Coxiana, the whole range, including the definitive P.G. Wodehouse. Now, the good news is, and Paul doesn't know this, we're doing a big retrospective again next year. Now, the first time we did it was on the night of 9/11. The second time we did it, we were illustrating all the wonderful illustrations he did for the short, the long, the tall, the short. Yes, of Geoffrey's wonderful and best short stories. Paul Cox did these fantastic illustrations, and we launched it the day after lockdown. I'll give you all a long advance warning about the date for Paul's next show, so that you can book your place in the bomb shelter. Who else have we got here? There's a great turnout of the Ed McLachlan family. Sadly, we lost Ed last year. But we're going to have, and this is more good news, on the 2nd we're having a retrospective plucked from the great amount of new material we found in the archive. Peter Cross, genius, is he here tonight? Peter is the recorder of the gallery and producer of some of the very best illustrated books, particularly Trouble for Trumpets. Any other body living and painting? I'll get hell if I forget anybody. Yes, Jonathan Cusick. So I'm glad you could come down from the frozen north. I regard Jonathan as the best. I think he is now. He's been at it long enough. He's a young lad, but I think he's the best caricaturist in the country right now.
Leslie.
JC, John Cleese was due to come, so you could have stood him next to a fantastic caricature. Now, finally we have Simon Drew. I met Simon in the late 80s. I attended Arts for the Earth, that's a Friends of the Earth offshoot, charity auction. And I bid, well actually my dog bid, I was doing some dog sitting, so I used the paw of the dog. And I bought Puffin Nuffin. The original Puffin Nuffin is mine in my personal collection. Yes, eat your heart out. And I've still hung on to it. I've turned down, why did you tell us why you did a copy? He never does copies. I plead with him, but this time he did a nothing. So you can see how good. It's not as good as mine, but it's pretty good. I've enjoyed all these relationships, and I particularly enjoyed Simon. I love going down to see his marvellous shop in Dartmouth. He's hospitable, unique, slightly strange, but brilliant, a wit, a monster punster, and a really good egg. And he's going to tell you what a wonderful chap I am tonight.
Thank you. Well, I will answer that. First of all, I will answer why I have to redraw it, because my cards are now being distributed by Cath Tate Cards, and Cath Tate Cards is named after Cath Tate and run by Rosie Tate, and there they both are. So they are responsible for me having to draw that again because it's a different shape and it didn't fit their cards. So that's just to make that clear, because I don't usually draw things twice like some people do. Because we met Chris and Carol when they sold Friends of the Earth that picture. We were treated to a dinner by somebody, and by the end of the dinner, I ended up with my pictures in this glorious gallery. And I came in whenever the first pictures were up, and they were on that wall, and they were between Arthur Rackham and Heath Robinson. And I thought, well, that'll do. So I couldn't possibly have done any better than that. And also, this place has got lovely, beautiful pictures like Peter Brookes, of which we've got a couple up at home, and Ed McLachlan down there, who is my favourite of all the cartoonists anyway. Anyway, we live in Dartmouth, as Chris said. We have a gallery there, and it's lovely to be here with Shepard's pictures, because one of our friends for years there was Christopher Robin Milne. And Christopher Milne did not talk about Winnie the Pooh, did not want to talk about Winnie the Pooh, didn't like any of that, but he did love Shepard's pictures. And I think that's the really lovely bit of it all. So we thought, when we first came, in those 80s, to pick up a few tips. And one of the things we'd worried about, Caroline and I, was whether we could have a dog in our little gallery. Our gallery is smaller than this, not surprisingly, but would it be okay to have a dog in here? And I noticed that Chris had his dog walking about. And so I said, would it be all right, do you think, to have a dog? What would happen if a customer didn't like dogs? And Chris said, well, they could always piss off, couldn't they? So we got a dog. A collie, who was a very happy dog. We called her Plug, after one of the characters in the Bashing Kids, but we actually called her Fatty most of the time, as you do. And she seemed to be doing all right in our gallery, until one day when she was sitting outside the shop on the pavement, and I went to the door and said, "Come on in, Fatty," and then looked up and saw a really big woman looking at me. Now, I could have got away with it if I'd not then followed that up with, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean you." Opposite our gallery is the Ainscough Gallery. Ainscough Gallery is run by Catherine, who used to work here.
Oh, work is overstated.
Well, you can't say. And there's Catherine's son, standing there, Freddie, the tall, handsome one. Catherine was. We're always talking, and Catherine said, "Why don't you write a book about your experiences in the gallery?" Well, I haven't written a book, but we do write diaries every now and again, and as to things that have happened in the gallery. So we jot down things, customers' comments, things like Dutch couple were walking along looking at the pictures, and they said, we like your work very much, but have you exposed yourself in Holland? An elderly lady who said, could I introduce you to my grandson, because he would like your work, but I'm very proud of him because he's in a marching band. And he's actually the drum maisonette. And so I always write down these things because you never know when they might be useful. And the picture which is downstairs, which was mentioned, Puffin Luffin, I had a German couple who said, it's very interesting. Could you explain this picture to us? It's really quite painful explaining something like that, which is, Anyway, you go through all we in England say nothing, sometimes meaning really sort of, and at the end of this, they said, well, do you English find this funny, do you? Caroline, my wife who stood there, quite often gets asked by customers, is Simon Drew still alive? Which is, because we've been there a long time now. We've been there 44 years. And Caroline's usual answer is, he didn't look too bad at breakfast. And so far it's all right. But the other day, this is quite recently, I had this couple looking around, and then they said, so is somebody drawing Simon Drew's work now? And I thought, what do they mean by that? Well, is anybody carrying on his work? I wonder what they mean by that. Well, now that he's dead, is somebody carrying on his work? And I smiled, because I really didn't know what to say. And the poor chap went, oh my God, I think I've committed a foie gras. I get into trouble. I get into trouble usually with things that people consider blasphemous. I did a Christmas card of Joseph looking into the cradle, saying, "Is you is or is you ain't my baby." Another Christmas card was "Shop at Harrods." I did one that wasn't a Christmas card, which was the Light of the World with Christ holding a lamp up. Only I did it with an ice cream. I called it The Last Temptation of Christ, which at the time was a film, wasn't it? A shop in the Midlands rang up to say, somebody's just been in, bought all 12 of that card, torn it up into little pieces and thrown it on the floor. And I said, I'm so sorry. And they said, we've been trying to get rid of him for years. He said he'll never come in here again.
Order another 20.
So I was quite pleased. Anyway, we write these things down. So we write them all down so that we've got a diary. We had to write down that Brian Sewell paid us a compliment. That went in the book. In the days when people wrote cheques, we could see what their names were, if their names were a bit odd. I've written down some: Olivia Knocker, Scarlet Marriage, Annette Curtin, Jean Staines. They all because they're too entertaining. And so we've got a long list of customers from Joe Bloggs to Judi Dench. But we are privileged to have had all of these people in our shop, and most of all, I feel really privileged to be in this shop, in this gallery, and I'm privileged tonight to be opening the 2025 Illustrators exhibition. So cheers to the exhibition, everyone.
Thank you, Simon. I was waiting to see if he'd mention my three favourite ones. There's a little mole in a tartan skirt. That's the mole of Kintyre. And then there's some very threatening moles in dark interior, and those are the dark satanic moles. And another blasphemous one is the Pope on a pogo stick, and it's Pope Springs Eternal. Simon Drew is very much alive. far. I did forget to mention the non-entity that is E.H. Shepard. Very much second division, I'm sorry. But absolutely the star of the show. And the good news is that we're doing a major show on the 16th of December. Great new stock going in, but we've brought over from Australia the 5 collection, which is 53 pictures which have been out of circulation for a very long time. And we'll have Brian Sibley's new book to be there to be signed by Brian. Brian, you're going to come back? Yes! Oh, Brian! Sounds as though Thank you all for coming. Thank you for listening very patiently to Simon Drew. And thank you, Simon, very much indeed. Thank you.